Welcome back to CEEN Caribbean News. It's now time to go in depth. It's the year of elections in the Caribbean, with general elections having taken place already in Anguilla, the British Virgin Islands, Guyana, Haiti, St. Kitts and Nevis, and Trinidad and Tobago. In all those elections, there was a clear trend. The opposition defeated the then government by a vast majority, uprooting long-term governments, some at the helm for over 20 years. The next general election in the region will be held in St. Vincent and the Grenadines on December 9, and we can't help but wonder, will they have the same result? Dr. Ralph Gonsalves has been the Prime Minister of St. Vincent and the Grenadines since 2001, dominantly maintaining that position in the last two elections since he took office. His leadership has not gone untainted, and as the country braces for another general election, will he remain unaffected by damning accusations? We discuss this issue now with political analyst and director of cadres, Peter Wickham. Welcome to Indepth, Mr. Wickham.
Thank you. Good to be with you again.
Now, the election fever swept the Caribbean this year, and next in line to the polls is St. Vincent and the Grenadines, smack in the middle of the Yuletide season. Is this a good idea, election practically at Christmas?
Well, I don't know if it's a good idea. It's a tradition. This is the third election that Dr. Gonsalves has called, and each occasion he's called it around the same time. I think it was the 13th, the 15th of December, and now he's gone with the 9th of December. So it's pretty much a tradition, and I guess he feels it has worked for him in the past, so he's trying it again, almost asking the population to give him a Christmas present of sorts. But it has worked for him in the past, and this has been his custom.
Is there a particular reason why Prime Minister Dr. Ralph Gonsalves consistently called elections in December?
I guess the idea is that his time is up in March. He would have to have called the election constitutionally by March. And I think in this particular instance, the concern is the ability to actually open the airport on time. This would be a factor. And I guess if he's not 100% sure that he can deliver it before the election day, his feeling is just go with custom, go with his tradition, and call the election before Christmas. My sense is that an election immediately following Christmas is a bad idea. An election any closer to the actual Christmas day, let's say around the 20th, is also a bad idea. So certainly if one gets it in just before people actually start their Christmas preparations, it's not a bad thing. Certainly if you want to move around in a constituency and with a feeling of cheer and goodwill, it might very well work in his favor, so who knows. It's possible that this might not be as bad a time. But in terms of elections in the Caribbean, it's not a particularly popular time for elections. Invariably, people try to do it in November, or alternatively, they go for February during the actual tourist season. Just bear in mind that St. Vincent and the Grenadines doesn't have a tourist season of sorts because there's no real tourist industry to speak of.
Now, the Prime Minister for the last decade and a half, Dr. Ralph Gonsalves, is caught up in his third sexual scandal. Though he denies the current allegations as he did in 2008, do you think this will affect his fourth bid for office? I
think that the last election and the scandal that he faced in the last election, where a woman was apparently accusing him of rape based on an affidavit that she signed claiming that she was raped, was a serious accusation. I think this one this time around is considered far less serious. I think that people see it generally as being a bit more scandalous, but I don't know that he's being accused of any official misconduct. I think the last time around it was certainly misconduct. I think this one really comes down to a very private and personal matter where the accusation is certainly less related to what one could call criminal misconduct. He was able to stare down those accusations on the last occasion. And my sense is that if he was able to stare down those accusations, I imagine that this time around he shouldn't have any particular problem. And it's interesting that last time he actually frontally faced the accuser and faced the accusations and dealt with the issue. In this occasion, he hasn't really dealt directly with it. So persons up to this time don't even know whether he's acknowledging that it was him in the tape or not. But my sense is that this should be an easier scandal for him to stare down, largely because it is not anything of a criminal nature, and certainly there's no official wrongdoing that's being accused.
Dr. Gonsalves won a majority of the seats for his second term to office, but his popularity waned a bit for the 2010 elections when he lost 4 seats. Did those sexual misconduct accusations play a part?
The swing that we had last time was not abnormally large. It resulted in a large number of seats. It's difficult to know whether the seat loss was directly related to that incident or that accusation, or was it the fact that You had the election coming on the heels of a referendum, which was lost by the government. Perhaps a combination of those two factors could have led to it. But the significant thing here is that the level of electoral swing that was experienced in the last election was not unusually high, bearing in mind that you're dealing with a third-term government, and it was not high for a third-term government. At the same time, however, since St. Vincent and the Grenadines only had 15 seats, a swing which is minimal can actually result in a significant seat loss, and that's what happened last time.
Now, you're quoted in the Antigua Observer saying politicians should not be judged based on their personal lives. And in doing so, you're slamming the circulation of the audio recording, which is causing the scandal in St. Vincent and the Grenadines right now. But realistically, are citizens in the region open to separating politicians from their personal lives?
Well, I definitely think so. I mean, if I look at the history of the Caribbean, we can see that it is replete with several scandals. Certainly, the history of politics globally, recently, we only have to look as far as the Monica Lewinsky scandal. I mean, and I ask myself whether Bill Clinton is judged on the basis of his history and his performance in relation to what he did for the American economy, or is he judged on the Monica Lewinsky scandal? And I tend to think it's former, not the latter. Of course, the Caribbean, we've had our fair share of scandals. I mean, Jamaica has had. We've had in Barbados, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Antigua and Barbuda. St. Lucia has also had scandals. And I think in many instances, politicians have come out from that still able to hold their heads relatively high. And I think that even though one may say that your moral opinion of a leader may somewhat wane as a result of something like this, I think when it comes down to the fundamentals, I think that we still look past it and we look to what a leader is able to deliver in terms of competence. Because quite frankly, you're not dealing with a situation in which you're electing a person to perform religious duties. You're electing a person to run the country. And I think that competence is always the first call in the Caribbean.
Now, opposition leader Arnim Eustace has been fairly quiet in this election buzz, even with everything going on with the scandal the Prime Minister has found himself in. Does he stand a great chance of taking the reins of Parliament this time around?
Well, certainly this time around, there's nothing new, and I think that is one of the more significant observations that we're making, that he does not seem to be bringing anything new in terms of his policies, projections, and he's also relatively tired. I mean, this would have been the third time he's been beaten. This will be the fourth time he'll be beaten if he's beaten. He's been beaten 3 times already. So all in all, you're dealing with a person who is pretty battered in the vineyard of politics. And it is true that this time around the election campaign doesn't appear to be throwing up anything significant other than the fact that you're dealing with these tapes that are being thrown around. If he does better, certainly it will suggest that people are more inclined to him because they're less inclined to the other person. But certainly he doesn't seem to have done a whole lot to make himself more attractive this time around. And one wonders what the strategy is going forward. There has been a proposal that they should build a new hospital in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. This proposal hasn't been supported by any critical analysis of the cost and how the cost will be met and so on. But that seems to be the only thing that they have put on the table. The economy of St. Vincent and the Grenadines is not doing well. There's no economy in the Caribbean really that's doing very well. So the idea that he could turn around a situation better than Dr. Gonzalez could is something that one would presume an economist would float, but it doesn't seem to have gained any real currency this time around. He will have a hard time, I think, convincing voters on this occasion that he is more ready than he was on the previous 3 occasions that he was beaten.
Now, a hospital is being championed by Arnim Eustace's party, though it isn't being widely supported. What is being promised by Dr. Ralph Gonzalez?
Good question. Dr. Gonzalez is promising that he will deliver the airport. Dr. Gonzalez is promising that he will deliver more jobs and that he will deliver an economy that is very much focused on new developments and that can employ more people in the future. He has argued that this airport will be the gateway to progress, gateway to a tourism economy. He talks about new hotels and new hotel chains that can follow on the heels of the new airport that he is proposing. That's the kind of talk that he has been coming with, which is consistent with a kind of developmental agenda. The question, however, will be, will people focus on those issues, or will they have the capacity to focus on these issues, or will they be distracted?
Now, throughout the year, we've seen landslide victories as the trend in general elections. Given the voting history of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, is that likely to be the case for whomever wins?
Yeah, that's another interesting question. I'm very careful how I define landslides. I find that in the Caribbean, we throw the phrase landslide about quite casually, and I think that if one defines a landslide properly, which means a significant growth or loss of seats, in addition to a significant shift in terms of the popular support for a political party, and the other point is that it has to be a seismic shift that alters fundamentally the reality of politics in that country. If we were to use that comprehensive definition that I have developed, I would say no, that there will not be a landslide in St. Vincent and the Grenadines on either side. If the Labour Party, Unity Labour Party, the Gonzales Party, if they were able to win a fourth victory and they were able to gain more seats, even if they gain all of the seats on the mainland, which would be within the type of swing range that they are projecting, if they were able to do that, that does not amount to a landslide, in my opinion, because while it appears to be a change in seats that's significant, the fact is that the percentage support that will be additionally gained is nothing beyond 5 percentage points, which to me is not seismic. So if they were able to win more seats and if they were able to capture all the seats on the mainland, which is what they're saying is their objective, I don't see that as a landslide. And on the other side, if the opposition party, NDP, was able to gain additional seats sufficient for them to be able to win the election, you're looking at their likely swing to be in the vicinity of 2 or 3 percentage points, which means that they get probably 3 or 4 more seats. And again, I don't see that as being a landslide. So either way, if either party wins, they will win a reasonable government. I don't think, however, that landslides are really part of the conversation this time around in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, if we define a landslide properly.
Thank you very much for joining us, Mr. Wakeham.